Everyone has that piece of media, that special something that they watched, read or played during a formative time in their lives that, even if in a small way, shaped them into who they are today. Of course, for me, as a child of the early 2000s, that special piece of media was a little indie Swedish game developed under the worst software platform imaginable. Yes, despite how prolific it has become, Minecraft certainly had a humble beginning. Comparing how it started to how it is now is strange, and in some ways a little bit sad. I grew up on the late beta releases from 1.6.5, which I'm sure to some of you is quite late. I wasn't an alpha kid like you. But all I'm trying to demonstrate is that this game, even if I wasn't actively playing it, has been a part of my life for, just about half of it. So it really means something to me. If you want some idea of how ingrained this game is into the very core of my being, the name of this channel, Version Gamma, came from, even if indirectly, this game. It's the place where I learned about software versioning with the Greek alphabet. Modding it is what sparked my interest in software that would lead me into my comp sci degree and, eventually, my career as a software developer. This relationship I have to the game is probably why I find that it has an atmosphere that is so difficult to define. I'm going to spend the next however minutes attempting to define that atmosphere, the atmosphere of single-player and small-server multiplayer survival. But ultimately, this was my experience alone. I think that what I just showed is enough to get a sense of exactly what I mean, which is pretty remarkable, right? That one song and some panning gameplay can be that impactful. But I think that's always been Minecraft's strength, to make a lot with a little, because at its core, Minecraft is a game about exploring. The mining and the crafting that you do is all underpinned by the need to explore, to find new landscapes to build on, caves to mine resources from, exploring a vast, empty world, one with so much natural beauty, even without overcooked, resource-intensive and unnecessary shaders on. At its core, Minecraft is a game without purpose. There are goals to achieve, there is a quote-unquote ending, but you are directed towards none of it because, well, it's not the point. The point of the game is that you create your own purpose, that you build what you want to build, that you explore what you want to explore. There are things to do, but what you do is a decision made by you, rather than the game itself. There is something so simple, and yet so melancholic about the visuals, audio, and primary gameplay loop of Minecraft. That combined with its sense of directionlessness, in an open yet empty world, it's no surprise that it elicits responses of melancholy. This is especially true when that game is set to such interesting music. I don't just mean Volumes Alpha and Beta, Lena's music deserves credit too, but Volumes Alpha and Beta is what I'm going to be touching on, if for familiarity if nothing else. But these tracks are such an interesting choice for the game, not playing off the open nature of the game, nor the pixelated aesthetic, but rather using slow melodies on pianos and synths to create an extremely relaxed tone. Having a track able to fade in when you're doing anything means that what's emphasized by the music is not the most exciting parts of the game, but is usually the most mundane. The music for fighting the Ender Dragon, what is positioned by the game as the final boss, even if it isn't the last boss you'll fight, sounds like this. While the music that can play while you're on the main menu sounds like this. It paints a picture, doesn't it? Minecraft isn't about large fights, exciting gameplay, it needs those things to stay engaging, but what the game is really about, what you feel the most, what you take away from the experience, is the small stuff. The process of exploring caves, of building a home, of fishing and farming, and sorting through your hundreds of chests, all of these slower elements of the game. And something that the melancholic feel of the music makes so viciously clear is that Minecraft is a very isolating experience. Its capacity for endless creativity may be inviting, but the world that crafts this experience is also one devoid of connection, an endless world that can be shaped in thousands of ways, but one in which only you, or you and a handful of others inhabit. The most communal aspect of this game, in terms of its mechanics, would probably be villages, but you're much more likely to do a colonialism than interact with these villages as villages. Really, it's their structures more than the villages themselves that are giving you a respite from the empty landscapes. Sure, this aspect grows smaller and smaller as they add more interactive mechanics to the game. The way that villagers have their own jobs and they have trade relations with you, raids that you can help defend against, it really isn't the same when all of these structures were empty, or even when trading was so much more basic. But even as that isolating atmosphere goes away, you can't help but still feel it. Because it's not isolation in the sense of being alone, but instead being by yourself. It's not oppressive, it's freeing. This world is your playground. You get to do whatever you want in it, and as far as the Microsoft-led Mojang have strayed, they've never taken away from that aspect. There's something interesting about what I just said. I've been trying to discuss the game as it is, rather than how it was years ago. And in saying that, you might have just realized that I just broke that now, talking about changes to the game like they're taking away from what the game is. The thing is though, is that even true? And more accurately, is this atmosphere that I'm describing truly real, or one created from my time with the game in the past? There's an interesting question about this video which you wouldn't have thought of, which is, why film here? Normally, I film in interesting looking locations that I haven't been to before, because where I live, there's an abundance of natural beauty, and it's a unique aspect among the scene of game design analysis that I try to bring to my productions. But this place is different. Normally, I wouldn't reveal exactly where I shoot for, privacy reasons. But this place is important. Where I'm standing is the Karamatura campground in the Huia region of the Waitakere Ranges, and it's a place I've been to many times. Just not recently. Back in the early 2010s, I was part of a scout group, as children tend to be, their parents forcing them to be outside lest they spend every weekend in Skype calls playing on Mineplex with their friends, back in the days before we understood what predatory business practices were. And this place was a frequent visit of our camping trips. I hadn't been here in probably about 7 years, not until I visited it on a location scout about a year and a half ago that would turn into this very video. And while I was here, I was hit with one of the most powerful waves of nostalgia I've ever had in my entire life. I have so many stories I could tell about this place, like how we had to cross this river to get to the car park, about how we set up a rope bridge along this trench and how someone almost snapped their spine when it collapsed, how I fell into this river wearing a hiking bag which gave me the most sudden urge of adrenaline I've ever had in my entire life, which allowed me to stand back up from a sitting position, wearing a bag that probably weighed about as much as I did at that time. I could tell you exactly where we set up our tents. It was right there. And I say all this because sometime in the middle of 2020, I listened to Volume Alpha, in full, for the first time. And it made me feel very similar things to when I walked around here for the first time in 7 years. I was trying to write a very early draft of this video. I was listening to it just to kind of get inspiration, but I couldn't write. All I could do was just sit there. Because I could tell you just as many nostalgic stories from my early teen days of playing Minecraft, the time someone found and nuked my base in a PvP vault server, but was still kind enough to give me my ME drives back so it wasn't a total loss, or struggling to figure out what the fuck a port forward is so that friends could connect to servers I would try and host on my desktop, which with so many years and a computer science degree later seems too laughably easy to have ever caused me so much trouble. I still have my original world. Original. The first one I ever played on. It was sitting on a broken hard drive for many years, but recently I was able to get access to all the data stored on it. Date created, 3rd of September, 2011. That was 11 years ago. I was 10 years old. Playing on this world for the first time since probably when I was in primary school, it was surreal. Introspective. I remember so much about this world, creating this first house, then creating the second house because the first house was a tent made of stone, of learning about the nether and being blown away that this whole other world existed, playing around with too many items back when modding was dragging class files into a games.jar executable. This dates back to a time before food could be stacked, before sprinting and hunger and bows with durability. It dates back to a time in my life so long ago. I was a different person. As I was playing on this world, and as I was listening to C418's soothing piano melodies, it made me remember. Remember the days, weeks, months I spent playing this game, the experiences that defined that part of my life, as I rolled into the most extreme state of melancholy I'd ever experienced. Mix that with the state of the world at the time, the general sense of unease that the lockdowns created, alongside my crumbling sense of adequacy from me feeling like I was failing at all aspects of my life, meant that the solemn ambience of Minecraft plowed into me like a freight train. It made me remember the person I once was, back when I played this game every day, all the flaws that I have now that he didn't. My inability to capitalize on the creative burst I got from the first lockdown, my inability to escape the dead-end, depressing job I was working in, my failure to properly communicate in all of my relationships that led to awful decisions in one the year prior, that led to the neglect of my closest friends as I was incapable of properly talking to them, that I felt pushed them away from me, that I still feel pushes them away from me, how lonely I felt and still feel, like if I just disappeared, no one but my closest family would really care, that I'm not close to anyone and nobody wants to be close to me, that I'm being left behind. I am alone, and sitting there, listening to and playing something that practically put me in a trance. It made me yearn for the life I had then, one devoid of the complex and deeply personal emotions and feelings one has to deal with as they age. A simpler, better time. Or, more accurately, the idealized vision of a simpler, better time. One in which you cannot see the very real and just as impactful anxieties, but can only subconsciously fold them into your own experiences. And this, I fear, is how I view Minecraft. Not as the flawed experience that it was, and still is, as all things are, but as this idealized vision that I see it as now. The idea of its simple mechanics and melancholic music representing a past long gone. Its open and limitless world representing the limitless possibilities of youth. It's a little too perfect, yeah? Because really, I cannot speak critically when discussing this game. My personal experiences are so intertwined with my experiences of Minecraft that I cannot distinguish what is fact and what is memory, how the game was, or how I remember it to be. When we look back on our past experiences, we do so through this lens, wrapped up in our own emotions and memories, a lens we call nostalgia. It's a term we use for many things, for thinking of things more highly because of childhood experiences, or for that melancholic feeling you get when you think back on the past. It's generally something we try to ignore when we're being critical, when we're analysing games or movies or books or any kind of art, because we want to understand the actual quality of something, how it was created, how it can be improved, and how we can learn from that to create our own art. But in the case of Minecraft, I don't care. This game has been a part of my life in some form for half of my time on this earth, and that experience has shaped me into the person that I am today. I will not forget about that. To do so would be to ignore the very person that I am, to lie to myself about how much this stupid block game means to me. All we can ever truly know is our own experiences, and as long as we don't pretend that what we believe is the whole truth, and that we're open to listening and understanding from other people's experiences, there can't be any shame in our own nostalgic views. This game is special to me, and I have to assume that if you're still watching, it was special to you too, or at the very least, you have a very similar relationship to another piece of media. All I ask is that you don't forget that. Understand that your view is tinted by the lens of nostalgia, but you should cherish those memories all the same.